Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today we're joined by Kelley Kage, CIO at Employers Insurance. Kelley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. Hackers are getting smarter. Is your security keeping up? CyberLink sells industry-leading AI-powered cybersecurity solutions that detect threats in real time, so you know about an attack before the damage is done, not after. Learn more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyber, Lynx.com. And now back to our show. Kelley, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Employers and your role there as CIO?
Sure. So for Employers, they are a 113-year-old workers' compensation company. They are nationwide. And most recently, they just added a new line of business, so excess workers' compensation. And for my role as CIO, I oversee everything related to technology. So that's data, product management, a lot of the operational work for executing and delivering on our technology initiatives. And then most recently, a lot of work with AI, which is really exciting. And of course, cybersecurity as well.
Awesome. Well, you said all of my favorite things in one sentence, so I love it. So I do get excited about where we are with AI and where it's going, and I love the whole security aspect of it because I think that's exciting. But let's start. I mean, as an insurer, I think this is security is obviously a real issue, and anytime there's money involved, hackers really like that. It seems to draw them out like, sharks to blood. So I think that being the case, let's discuss AI and cybersecurity, kind of, what your take is on that, because so let's start with that. I think we see products like, you see things like, let's say Darktrace, for instance, where you get AI, like machine learning in cybersecurity products, which I think are great. It gives us a view of where the future is going with security. And then you see products like CrowdStrike and SentinelOne using AI in their, the LLM version of, parts of AI in their AI SIEM and SIEM products, which I think are really cool and great uses. But for you guys, as an insurer, kind of where do you see it? What are you guys doing with it? There's so many places we can go, so I'm going to leave it completely open for you. Go ahead.
I love how you framed that question. And starting it off, I think AI and cybersecurity have to go hand in hand. As we are working through and figuring out the way that we work going forward, not only are the threat actors taking advantage of AI in many different ways that we see with the attacks going faster and more complex than we've seen in the past, but we have an opportunity to leverage AI internally. That's through our threat monitoring, through understanding how to resolve a lot of the vulnerabilities that are out there. And you see things like Mythos coming out from Anthropic, great opportunities for us to take advantage, but also scary at the same time because those threat actors are getting that same level of information. So when I think about what that looks like longer term, I really think AI governance plays a big role in how we function going forward. Because today, there are two parallel tracks between how we're managing AI and how we're managing cybersecurity. I really think they end up coming together long term. And I know people don't love talking about governance and they feel like it slows things down. But for me, I try and set the mindset around it. Governance is not a speed bump. It is the on-ramp to where we need to go for AI. And so building that governance, partnering with our cybersecurity, our legal teams, our HR teams, to make sure we're really thinking through all of the implications to AI and keeping our code and our companies safe as we're doing that is absolutely critical. So we're trying to get the right guardrails in place so that we can adopt and roll out new capabilities much more quickly. We're not trying to just put up guardrails for the sake of guardrails. And that's where I think cybersecurity leaders play such a critical role in showing up with how we implement AI, not only from a vulnerability management perspective, but how we do business. And so those cybersecurity leaders, along with technical leaders, really have to be in lockstep with our business partners and how we're delivering.
I mean, you look at things like OpenClaw, right? Where now you've got something, and I think this goes back to your point of governance. And when you look at OpenClaw versus something like Claude Cowork, right? Very similar products in the fact that it can go and do things, but Cowork has already got a lot of governance built into it, whereas OpenClaw is that bleeding edge. Nothing's there unless you put it there. And we see how dangerous that is, right? At least on the tech side, it becomes real easy. That's obviously not a great example for the non-tech people who aren't deep into AI, but it's really such a stark contrast. And without that governance, it's just so dangerous, right? There's so many vulnerabilities, and with the bad guys using AI to attack, it really is a fighting fire with fire, right? I don't think we can now justify using traditional security products alone. Because if you're not using AI in security, you really are just bringing a knife to a gunfight, and the bad guys are going to be able to get in. So, I mean, I think one of the things that are, as you touched on, Mythos, which I think, come on, that's just fantastic, right? It's really exciting on both sides of this battle, right? The good guys and the bad guys, and where that takes us. But I think it takes us to the place where, going back to things like using AI in the defenses, not just Mythos, but then on the security stack side, having machine learning looking to see what is happening on this network and these devices, because we're not going to be able to patch fast enough, right? As the bad guys are using AI to accelerate their vulnerability, attacks, right? How do we defend against it? You can't patch your way through that. How do you defend against a zero-day attack when the bad guys are using AI to find new vulnerabilities? I think it means that we have to start moving towards an AI-based security where it's looking to see what normal is, and when things deviate from that, I'm going to stop that. I think that's the only way. I don't know of another way, and I think that anything else, obviously, you keep traditional, layering in there, but anything else doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know how we would defend moving forward into the future here. I don't know how we as professionals defend against that. Totally open to ideas, right? But I think that's the only way to properly secure an organization now, is by having AI looking to see what's going on and saying, okay, this is normal, and suddenly something's different. Let me stop that and call for an adult to take a look at this. But again, I'm a student of the world. I'm open to suggestion. What do you think? Am I missing something?
I think you're spot on in how you're thinking about it. And we really have to leverage AI to be proactive in how we're monitoring, how we're tracking. Those abnormalities and anomalies are really the flags that we have as that early detection. And the human in the loop doesn't go away with that. It is, when do you pull the right people in to dive in a little bit deeper? But instead of doing the research and then turning off access, it flips itself on its head. We need to have those AI agents having the full autonomy to say, this is abnormal behavior. We're shutting this off until someone can review it. And that proactiveness and that control that we're handing over to agents to be able to do that can feel a little bit intimidating at first. But as we start to get that in place, I think it really will help uplift companies to have that higher level of cybersecurity protection there and that proactiveness. It means we might hit a few bumps along the way as we start to implement this new way of thinking and new way of working for cybersecurity. But if it keeps the company safe longer term, that's really the best bet that we can take. And I think we have to shift how we think about cybersecurity threats as well. So when we're talking to boards of directors or stakeholders, we really have to put it in business terms of, if we don't have this level of protection, this is the potential impact from a dollars perspective or bottom line perspective, to say, this is what we're going to try and protect. It's almost like an insurance policy, but for your tools and your company IP that's out there. So making sure that we're focused on the right pieces and that our business partners understand the why behind doing that.
Well, I think the really interesting and fun part about using AI in security is I think it helps get AI into other parts of the business. And for instance, it's really easy to say, look, we can't fight the bad guys who are using AI with traditional tools, right? I think that makes perfect sense to everybody. You got to fight fire with fire. Perfect, got it. But right now, if and I think on a business side, we're seeing the ROI on implementing AI systems isn't kind of what people were expecting. They thought it was going to be huge. A lot of companies even laid off people just to find out that that wasn't the case. They got a little too excited too fast. It didn't. And I think we're starting to see as the excitement wanes and the reality sets in that that AI in all of its form, whether it's an LLM or it's machine learning, is really just to supercharge the individuals and give them kind of super powers to be much more efficient and better, not to replace them yet. I think we're a long way from replacing people, but right now it's a great supercharger, right? And for I think the foresee, I guess it depends on how far you can see to say the foreseeable future, but for quite some time, I think it just makes us so much more efficient. And in any event, I think that when it comes to using AI in the security side, it makes perfect sense. And it's like, this is how we defend against those. And as the business does that and sees, hey, wait, this is amazing. We've stopped all these things, these 0 days. This was awesome. The spam that's coming in is gone. We're not, the inbox is cleaner. We don't have to worry about end users clicking on things because AI's got it covered and it's so much better. I think that helps then for the case of people being more comfortable with AI and saying, hey, look, we can roll this out in other areas. I know they're different. And I do like the security side of it the most, especially now because we're not seeing the huge ROI. It doesn't replace people, which I'm kind of happy about. But I do think that that is the place where organizations should be focusing right now is how do we use AI in security to kind of give us the best bang for our buck. And I think that's where it's at.
I think security is definitely a major avenue for that. Application development and technology is another huge space that AI can fully disrupt. I think from being able to leverage agents to write code to help with product design and documentation around requirements, I think it can improve and also accelerate a lot of the software development lifecycle
Yep.
that we experience. But I think we make a mistake sometimes focusing so much on AI for the technology piece. It really is that pivot to say, how do we engage an entire organization to think about AI? And that's something that we've done at Employers, and we are now fully rolled out with Claude across our entire organization. Every individual has access, has training, and they have hands-on ways to be able to leverage AI in their day-to-day work. And so when I think about that next level for AI, it's really not about it being a technology problem or technology adoption. It is truly thinking about change management and transformation at the organizational level. And a lot of leaders have very differing opinions on what success looks like with that. And when I think about what success looks like for me and for employers, it is finding the right opportunities to make sure that we can be more effective and efficient in what we're doing. We can improve painful process, not only internally, but for our customers as well. And it's an avenue for us to really say, how do we change the way that we work? We should not be bolting AI on top of bad process.
Yeah.
We should be pausing and rethinking that whole process and rebuilding it with AI built in along the way. So there's two avenues of thought. You don't see a lot of return on investment when you roll it out to everyone and you're seeing small wins along the way. And then the other side of it is give it to everybody. We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
I think there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle there where everyone needs access to grow their skills, to learn what that future can be. And I really think from a people perspective, the ones that are going to be really successful are the ones that start to augment their day-to-day with AI, finding the ways to be more productive and help get better quality deliverables out the door. They're going to far surpass their peers that don't take advantage of leveraging AI. So I think you have to think about it as a change management problem and help people get comfortable with using AI in their day-to-day. It is okay to have those small wins while at the same time you're focused on a bigger vision of what we need to accomplish. And for us, that has turned into being able to deliver new products much faster and improve our testing capabilities in ways that we haven't in the past. And being able to do both of those at the same time is the exciting part of where AI, I think, will really help those companies that lean in. And as people adopt AI, I know there's a lot of fear about roles going away. But I think to past transformations, when the internet rolled out, when ATMs went into banks, everyone thought bank tellers would go away. They're still there.
Yep.
Their role has just changed a little bit. And so everyone has to be comfortable with evolving and figuring out what that new way of working is. But we as technology leaders have to show up as those thought partners with HR, with legal, with all of our business leaders to make sure we're figuring out what that looks like together.
I love that. And I'm curious about your rollout of Claude, because when Microsoft rolled out Copilot internally, it was really interesting. They were expecting about 85% of people to be kind of power users of it because, it's Microsoft. They're a pretty tech forward company. And after 3 months, what they found was only about 15% of people were still using it. And what they found when they dug into it and did some interviews is the 15% that were still using it, were using it heavily, were those that kind of took the approach of seeing the AI as an intern, a new employee. So they were using managerial skills, leadership skills, instead of just seeing it as some technology to say, hey, write this email. Okay. Hey, solve this problem. Okay. And at some point, especially I think earlier on when they were doing Copilot versus now with the Claude that you're using, a kind of night and day, right? I mean, the Copilot of a couple of years ago, which was, OpenAI, it's not even in the same ballpark as Claude today, right? Claude today is just leagues better. So I'm kind of curious. They found that you had to have those leadership skills. And I think that still plays true today. If you treat your AI like it's an intern and you guide it and lead it, it becomes better and better. And soon it's a really helpful employee, right? And I'm really curious how that rollout has gone at employers, because I'm betting, and I don't mean to hedge your answer, but I'm betting it went really well because Claude is just so much more powerful, and people don't have to kind of use such kid gloves with it, and it doesn't hallucinate as much as OpenAI used to. So really curious, how has that gone for you at employers?
So we have been extremely thoughtful in how we rolled out AI. So yes, we have Claude as our tool that we're using at the enterprise level. But the way that we're thinking about AI is we want the right tool and the right model for the work that's being done. So longer term, we don't want people to care on the back end which model we're using. We want to be able to route to the most cost-effective tool that's going to get the best results for getting the job done. But it's not a tech rollout in and of itself that makes it successful. So right now, we have rolled Claude out. We're probably a month to 2 months in, and we have a 77% adoption rate across the entire organization. 90% of our organization has completed our AI trainings that we have built and rolled out. And we have a very detailed change management plan that we have been executing on to help bring AI to the organization. Because I think a lot of times it's seen as an AI tool or an AI project to deliver. That is not how you make it successful. You really have to have those business leaders bought in, the co-accountability in those rollouts. And we're already seeing a lot of business value. A lot of companies talk about not having that return on investment. We are seeing it significantly, paying for itself multiple times over based on what we've been able to implement so far. Those ideas did not come from the tech space. They came from empowering our business leaders. So we started with our executive team and then with their direct reports, putting them through a very intense training program that gave them the tools not only to help them know how to use AI, but trained them in how to think differently for their business process and how to help their organizations be able to roll out AI. So I think that has really helped from an adoption perspective, because one of my favorite parts that we did with that program is we had a company-wide event at the end of March, and with that, we had those business leaders presenting what they had built by themselves with Claude and the business value that came out of that. So the entire company was getting this entire overview of how we're going to leverage AI across the organization. But it wasn't just me or my leaders presenting it. It was their business leaders saying, here's the value we're already seeing. Here's what I was able to do with it. And one of the most moving speeches that came from that was someone that said, when I first started, I thought AI was terrible. I would ask it a question and it would give me some answer that was kind of right, but didn't really fit what I was looking for. And he said, I had to reflect and say, if I improve how I'm prompting and the context that I'm providing it, all of a sudden it's saying, you might want to ask these questions, or have you thought about these other pieces? And he felt like his knowledge was growing because of the feedback that Claude was able to provide and improve how he was delivering. So it's really been a huge focus on the people side of it and helping to bring them along and answering questions around the concerns of leveraging AI. Because I think in the news, we all see questions and concerns about environmental usage of AI, where data is going. And we have to have those open and honest conversations about what that looks like to help people understand what is okay, what isn't okay, and what our company stance is on moving forward.
That's brilliant. I mean, that is such an exceptional way to kind of roll it out, getting the leaders bought in and seeing it and then rolling it out, beyond that, down into their, to their subordinates. Fantastic. And I can't help but think that I just saw in Bloomberg they were mentioning that Singapore has just kind of passed this new, I don't know if it's stance, position, whatever you want to call it, where they're saying that they are not going to be replacing people with AI. And that this, if left to the market, would not be what would happen, right? And I think that's such a smart way of going about it. And I think as I hear what you're doing, just the timing of it couldn't help but think, you know what, I think you're one of the few cases, because of how you're implementing it, that you'll naturally see the benefits of using it. And it won't be how do we replace people? It's going to be how do we grow, because we're doing better, and our people are so much better and faster. We're growing. There's no reason to cut out people to stay the same. We're going to grow that much faster and better because all of our people are better and faster. And I think that's just brilliant. And it'll be interesting to see how many other organizations, end up in a similar position, but I think it's because of how you rolled it out. Honestly, I think that you're going to see a huge business change for the better at employers, and that you're not going to be getting rid of people because of how you rolled that out. I think that's huge, and kudos to you. That is just spectacular. I mean, fantastic stuff.
Thank you. And I think you're spot on. It is all in how you think about rolling out AI. There are companies that look at it from a cost savings perspective. And I question, what is the future for those companies where they're just thinking about it from cutting heads or saving dollars? So many companies have huge backlogs of work that they want to get done. People are maxed out in capacity. So if you can leverage AI to create more capacity, to build that future, to help with those strategic goals, it's just going to help the company evolve and grow that much faster. So I think there's two very different mindsets around what the AI outcome looks like. And I think it's really important for the companies that are going to be successful longer term not to look at it as a dollar savings or a headcount savings, but really look at it as how do we transform the way that we work and how do we show up differently. And I know for me, being in the insurance industry, a lot of times people think, oh my gosh, old, stodgy, so hard to move things forward. But I really think this is an opportunity for those heavily regulated industries to think differently, to work differently. And I'm seeing a lot of the regulators out there evolving at the same time with us.
Yeah.
So I would rather be at the front of that, partnering with those regulators to build what that future looks like, than be waiting for the regulators to come in and tell us this is what you need to be doing going forward.
Couldn't agree more. Now, we've been talking about AI and kind of how it affects people, and we're kind of touching on kind of leading AI. But how do you see AI affecting leadership in the future, right? Because I think currently, I think leading and mentoring is a critical part, and I think if people take the right approach to, or I think it's right, but if you take a human centric approach to your organization, then I think the leadership falls in line, and AI just supports that versus replaces it. But what do you see AI's role in leadership in the future and mentoring? How does this all play out? I think we've all seen it in the past. It makes perfect sense. But I think it gets a little scary. This is one of those areas where it gets a little scary for people. What's that look like in the future, from your perspective?
So, first, I will say I love this question. I have a huge passion for mentorship and coaching and bringing up the leaders around me and growing their skills. No matter where someone is in an organization, if they're leaning into AI and growing their skills, they are going to find ways to be successful. And I really think AI has created a new opportunity that makes coaching and mentoring accessible to everyone. A lot of times, executive coaching can be very costly and hard to get access to. Now you have those tools at your fingertips, whether it's the free versions or the paid versions of some of the models out there, but you can help it learn who you are, what you're trying to achieve, and it will give you some good tips and best practices. I will say it's better to have a person in partnership with that. So don't just take what AI gives you and run with it, but it helps you think differently or maybe approach situations differently than you would have previously. But I also think it is retraining the way that we think as leaders. And for those that are individuals and up and coming leaders, it's about evolving. It is about realizing what you do today may not be what you're doing in 2 years or 5 years, but that's okay. And so having that mindset of continuous improvement and thinking about what can I do better or differently that's going to improve the way that I work for myself, for my team, or for the company. All of those are extremely important. And so I look at, for me personally, as a mentor and a mentee, I like to have my own board of directors. And I call them my personal board of directors. It's people across different industries, different roles that I can go to with questions. And I tell others that is a great way to get feedback and to go to someone that can coach and mentor you and help you think through challenges with a different perspective. AI and these models just gets plugged into that as another voice and another perspective around that. But I also think it creates an avenue that we haven't had for 20 plus years. I think back to when the internet first rolled out. this is kind of the same thing. It's uncharted territory for us, and we all have an opportunity to lean in and design what our future looks like. So, those leaders that are going to be really successful are the ones that can take this tool, think about that strategic vision and how they get there, and start to help themselves and their teams move in that direction. And really think about what are the challenges that are holding people back, and how do we help overcome those challenges? How do we expose all of the good things that we can get partnering with AI or working differently in our teams? And so a ton of opportunity that's opened up. And I don't even know that we really know what that future looks like. But I tell my teams, how many times in your career do you get to design what your future looks like? This is the time to do that.
Oh, I love that. That is fantastic. So let me ask you, there are people who think that AI kind of leads to, to brain rot, right? As we've seen with access to information on your phone, no longer are people really kind of remembering the same amount because you're like, look, I can just look it up. You've got all the information in the world right on your phone, easily accessible. And some people worry that, well, now with AI that's doing even more thinking, it's not even just a matter of storing the facts, but it's doing some of the thinking. Do you think that this will lead to, kind of more brain rot, or does it actually free us up and allow us to focus on what we are best at, being creative, leading people, and is this kind of just a glass half full, half empty thing? It just reflects on, is the person a pessimist or an optimist? So I'm gonna give you both questions there. What do you think?
It's a great question. I think when people start out learning AI and leveraging these tools, it is so easy to get overstimulated, get so excited about what it is able to do for you. Creating slide decks, creating summaries of information, saving you hours of time. What we have to remember is you have to proofread what comes out of those tools. You have to make sure it really aligns with what you're trying to achieve. And I do see that term AI slop coming out every now and then with people creating things that, okay, did we really need that documentation, that 20-page paper that could have been a 2-sentence email? We have to think about how do we make it more efficient and effective. I like the analogy of when you learned to drive a car. Were you an expert the first day you sat behind the wheel? Probably not. But the more that you kept driving and you went to driving school before you got your license, you learned how to navigate the roads, how to parallel park or back up into a parking space. Same things with AI. So you start exploring. Yes, if you just stay at that level, you can definitely have some brain rot and let AI do all of the thinking for you. But that's not where you are going to excel as an individual or as a company. It's when you learn those nuances and those capabilities longer term that are going to help you be successful. So I think we have to be careful in how we approach it. But if you just stop at the basics, it is very easy to fall into that brain rot type category there. I think the goal is getting people in there longer term, helping them know how to leverage the tool and really get to what's going to drive the right value there.
Yeah, you mentioned the driving, and it's so interesting because as you look at how AI is working with self-driving cars, we're big Tesla fans, and we've had them for 12, 13 years, and watching the progression of the self-driving going from initially being like a drunk toddler, you're like, that is not safe at all. You're gonna get me arrested. All the way up to in every year or so, it gets better and better. And
Mhm.
it's obviously gotten so much better now to the point where I'd say it's really very close to as good, and in some cases so much better than humans. Just the other day, we're driving back from New York, and we're on autopilot, and this car beside us starts coming into our lane very quickly. At the second it starts moving, because it was already kind of on the line of the lane, it starts moving it. Our car moves over it was like exactly the same time, milliseconds difference, moves over. Now there's a median beside us and it slows down, but it did this whole thing, this evasive maneuver so beautifully, no overreaction, faster than I could have done it. Because by the time it moved over so fast, probably would have hit us. We probably would have gone into the median. Maybe I would have avoided it, but I probably would have overcorrected, hit the median. It would have been ugly. It was spectacular. I was blown away. And so that's the first time I'd seen it in real life. I've, had hundreds of hours of self-driving time, but seeing that was like, okay, I see the future here. Like I'm going to be out of this equation because I'm not that good. Like as a human, it takes us whatever it is. It's like a second to actually react, which is why you got to have that 2-second distance behind, vehicles. And so seeing that progression in AI, and just first of all, mind blowing that a computer can see, even track what this is, a ball, right? When you go back 20 years ago, in my old programming days, I mean, that was something to be able to take from zeros and ones and be like, identify in a picture that this is an object. Mind blowing. But the fact that we do this in real time, the computers are seeing everything, understanding the situation, understanding the rules of the road, wild. And so you see that, and it's so fun that you use that driving analogy, because that really does apply to AI in the business world, and its progression and how people are using it. And so I think it's going to be really interesting, how we apply AI in the future. So I'm going to ask you, I'll get to a question here. For employers and where you see AI in the future, how do you see this kind of playing out as AI gets better? Because we saw from early ChatGPT days with really cool, basically a really cool autocomplete. It could do stuff and it was fascinating, but hallucinated like crazy. Now there's still hallucinations, but you go with something like Claude. Claude is so much better, still has hallucinations, but is just an impressive and powerful and useful tool. Where do you see this going over the next 1, 2, 3 years? How far out do you see it? Can you kind of, in your employer's crystal ball, how far do you see that? What do you see this playing out like at employers with AI, and what's the future look like there for you?
So I'll start with, this is my personal opinion of where I see things going, but I really think AI is going to continue to grow and really help us rethink the way that we do business. And when I think about it from a technology perspective, I want our organization to be AI native. Right now, we're getting to AI first. It's going to take time for that really to get embedded into what we do every day. Because just like you mentioned with the Tesla and having to learn how to do those evasive maneuvers, it couldn't do that day one. A lot of our AI models are not going to be able to do that day one. So we're growing the skills now. And I think over the next 1 to 2 years, you start to then evolve that model so that it learns what is it that your company really needs, that you as an individual really need coming out of that tool. And the governance piece becomes critical there too, to ensure the accuracy and the quality. So with that Tesla, we want to make sure it's going to make that maneuver 100% of the time when a car comes into that lane. It takes time to build that up. So I think it's setting the right expectations too, that we want to go fast, but we want to do it right. And that means taking the time to train the models, to learn the right data and the right outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And I really think we will get to the point that we will have AI really embedded into every aspect of how we work to improve that customer experience, improve that employee experience, and really be at the forefront of bringing the best tools and technology to our agents and to our injured workers in the workers' compensation space, and really meeting them where they need to be met and using the data to drive that right experience. Because if we can personalize those interactions and really show up for those individuals in the best way possible, that becomes table stakes for how we do business. And we're seeing it as people interact with logging into their banks or other mobile apps that they use. They want that experience in everything that they do. So we have the opportunity now, and being at the forefront of AI and driving some of these implementations, I think we can now bring this to the insurance industry, which is ripe for some of those improvements.
Spectacular. I mean, that I couldn't agree more. I think that is as good a place as any to end on a high note, because that is just spectacular. Kelley, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been such a fun conversation. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and more about Employers?
Sure. Employers.com is a great avenue to find out more about Employers Insurance, their workers' compensation and excess workers' compensation products. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect and hear other people's thoughts and feedback on what we've talked about today.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on. Until next time, Kelley.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.